Torn Talisman. Our class visited Shiga for a school trip. It was a little too early to see the leaves changing colours for autumn, but it was quite chilly there. Yamamoto-kun, Kawashima-kun, and I entered a room on the 3rd floor of the Morinomiya Japanese Inn, which had a great view. The room had the name Lily of the Valley attached. The room had a fantastic view of a white birch forest and looked over a pond shaped like a gourd. The next room over was the maple room, and it was separated by a wooden door. We looked around outside and then looked around the room, and before long, Yamamoto-kun found something strange. On the joint of the door separating the 2 rooms, there were 4 old talismans attached. Looking closer, one of the 4 talismans was torn. "What is this?" Yamamoto-kun said as he tore the talisman off. "Leave it. There must be a reason for it," I said. But he had already torn it off by that point, and then he threw it in the bin. We didn't have anything special to do that day, so we washed up, had a leisurely dinner, and then all went back to our rooms to play cards and such. Lights out at 9:30 quickly arrived. The 3 of us got into our beds, with Yamamoto-kun in the middle. But it was hard to get to sleep with how excited I was, and how unfamiliar the bed was. I'm not sure how much time passed, but Yamamoto-kun next to me started to groan in his sleep. "No, no, ma'am." It sounded like a bad dream, and now I was fully awake. I reached out to wake him up, but when I touched him, I was shocked. He had a massive fever and was flushed all over. Kawashima-kun also woke up, so the 2 of us went down to the 1st floor to let the teachers know what was happening. When we knocked on the door, the young Mr. Hida, who was on charge that day, got up. "Sir, Yamamoto-kun from our room has a fever." "Is that so?" Mr. Hida listened as we spoke, and then quickly grabbed the emergency kit. He hurried up the stairs to the front of our Lily of the Valley room. But then he exclaimed, and then stopped. "Huh?" We could see a woman with long hair standing on the other side of the sliding door. But that woman stood there in silence, swaying from left to right. It was especially creepy. We clung to Mr. Hida and could do nothing but tremble. "Hey, let go, I can't move," he said, shaking us off. Excuse me," he then said in a loud voice, and opened the sliding door. But it was strange. That woman we had just clearly seen wasn't there. It wasn't like she had never been there, but rather that she'd simply disappeared. Mr. Hida rushed over to Yamamoto-kun and put a hand on his forehead. "What's this? He doesn't have a fever at all," he said. And so we touched his forehead too and were surprised. "Huh? What the hell is this?" That high fever he had just moments ago was gone, like it had never been there to begin with. No, on the contrary, now he was cold to the touch. Then Yamamoto-kun opened his eyes. "Huh? Where's that lady?" "Huh? There was a lady here with long hair." Yamamoto-kun looked around the room. We looked at each other before we could stop ourselves. Was the lady he was talking about that same one we saw through the sliding door? It was. But still, why was he having a nightmare? And what was up with that fever that suddenly appeared and then disappeared? The next day, rumors spread throughout the inn about Yamamoto-kun's nightmare. The head of the inn came to our room, and after looking at the wooden door separating ours from the next, nodded. You ripped off the talisman, didn't you? According to her, several decades earlier, a young woman was killed in the maple room next door. After that, guest after guest claimed to have seen her ghost, so they asked a monk to come out and he held a service for her. Then he put talismans around the room to seal her in. Thanks to that, nothing ever happened again, but because Yamamoto-kun had removed one of the talismans, her spirit had broken free.